Bobby, I can't thank you enough for doing this.
Oh, my pleasure.
Man,
my pleasure.
It's coming back in town for a couple days.
Yeah.
Life is good.
Unfortunately, it's a short visit, but the next one will be longer.
Sounds like a plan to me. So lots of areas I want to go in with you. So this is going to take multiple sessions. So if I can lasso him back in down the line here for some additional sessions, we're definitely going to do it. It's to me, it's just a lot of similarities, music, all that stuff. We're going to get to it. But let me ask you this: you're a Pittsburgh native, right?
Yes, sir.
Bishop Canavan.
I grew up in Sheridan, which is in the city.
Sheridan.
And then when I was a freshman in high school, I went to Holy Innocents. When I was freshman in high school, we moved to Thornburg. And then I finished my 3 years at Canavan. Yeah, Canavan graduate.
Big, beautiful houses over in Thornburg.
Yeah, still a nice place.
I can imagine. So you Bishop Canavan in 67, correct?
Yes.
And then you went to the Air Force, is that right?
August, I joined the Air Force. The Vietnam War was going hot and heavy. My father was in the Air Force in World War II, and we really didn't have the money to go to college. So he encouraged me to join instead of waiting around and get drafted, which was a good move.
Well, let me ask you this question. What was it like? Can you remember what that felt like? Because, again, we're living in a life right now where there is no draft. We haven't had draft, I think, this country since when? The early 70s, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to school and you know the war is going on there and it's probably rather turbulent and you know that there's a draft out there.
Right.
So you have a decision as a very young person, like, what do I do? Do I voluntarily go in or do I wait and take my chance?
Right.
Is that what it's
exactly.
like?
I wasn't going to wait and take my chance, and I wasn't going to college. So at that time, you could just get a deferment.
Okay.
After a while, there was no more deferments. They were just taking whoever they could, right?
Okay.
But so I joined the Air Force, which turned out to be a good move.
Right on.
I didn't have to fight, although I did spend 2 years in Southeast Asia,
right,
loading bombs on F-4s that were supporting the war.
Got it.
But I knew people that went and died,
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't want to do that.
You also came, you also came back and you were, is it Vietnam Veterans Against the War?
Yeah.
That was a group.
Yeah.
And then you were part of, if I read it correctly, you were part of a protest at the Statue of Liberty.
Correct.
In 71.
Exactly. So when I was still in the Air Force, I saw an ad in Playboy magazine.
Every good story starts out with an ad in Playboy magazine.
You know what? I was still a young man, right? But it was for full page ad, Vietnam Veterans Against the War.
Okay.
And I'm like, what is this, right? So I looked into it, and I had a couple of friends back here who were anti-war protesters. And so long story short, when I got out, I got involved pretty much right away with that organization. The first thing I did was went to Washington, D.C. with Marty and Franny, and we participated in, it was May Day, it was called, the huge demonstration down there, right? So that was my first taste of it. But I got involved here in Pittsburgh. There was a small chapter of Vietnam Veterans Against the War. I went down, I checked it out. I ended up running the chapter.
Okay.
And I actually became involved on a regional level with the organization. But the Statue of Liberty was, we had demonstrations going on all over the United States, right? It was something that was pre-planned, if you will. But we went up to, trying to think, Valley Forge is where we were camping. So that's where George Washington was, the Winter Soldier, right? So that was kind of like we're playing up on that sort of thing, right? Sure. And one of our guys got a bunch of us together, and we were in this tent, and he goes, I got this plan that we can take over the Statue of Liberty, right? So he lays it out, and he said...
Wait, take over the Statue of Liberty?
Yeah, literally. He
like
lays
seize it.
Yeah, he lays it out, and he said, this is how we're going to do it, right? He said, I've done all the reconnaissance, Army, right? Recon, right? So he says, who's in? So everybody in the tent said, okay, we'll do it, right? We left Christmas Eve. We left Philadelphia, went to New York City, got on the last ferries, the last couple of ferries that were going over to Statue of Liberty, right?
Okay.
It was winter. It was Christmas Day, and we had on, big overcoats. We had a little bit of food and stuff stuffed in there. And the way this worked is right when they were getting ready to close, we went up to I think it was like the 6th floor.
Okay.
Take an elevator up to where the stairs are.
Okay.
And it's a spiral staircase. You ever been to the Statue of Liberty?
I sure have.
All right. So you can't see up around that spiral staircase.
It's claustrophobic if you haven't gone there.
And it is.
Yeah.
So about halfway up, there's a cage door. And there was a lock on the top of it, but there was the bottom, you could pull it open.
Okay.
So we had a guy at the top who was pulling the gate open.
Okay.
We had a guy at the bottom who wasn't letting anybody up around because you couldn't see, right?
Sure.
So one by one, we go into the cage and climb up the ladder that leads to the torch, literally. So you could see out the torch. You could see when the boats were leaving. Mm-hmm. So there was 16 of us. So when we saw the last boats leave, we came down, assembled up in the Crown, sent a couple of guys down to scout out, see who was there, if anybody was there.
So security didn't see you there? They didn't.
There was one night watchman.
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And when the one guy introduced who he was and why we were there, he said, "Don't tell me, I'm leaving." And so he did. He left out a back door. So they were doing construction at the time, and there was a lot of wood. There was a lot of construction material there. So we barricaded ourselves in and just got on the phone and started calling people up. And so the news broke, and a lot of reporters came over, but there was a whole thing going on between who had jurisdiction. Was it New York Police Department? Was it the state police? It ended up being the Parks Department, right?
Right.
So they had that fight going on for a little while. But we ended up being in there for a little over 2 days.
Yeah.
And
48 hours.
Yeah.
Like that,
And we were the lead story on Walter Cronkite the next day, 6 o'clock news. So that's sort of my 15 minutes of fame.
So talk to me about how it ended, because I read, if I'm remembering correctly, did the governor have to sign something?
No, this is what happened.
Okay.
It went to a court. It went to a judge, and the judge said, "You guys have to leave, or we're going to come in and arrest you."
Okay.
So we took a vote, and we voted to leave. There were a couple of us that wanted to stay and get arrested as part of the protest.
Sure.
I was one of them.
Right.
But we left. We left peacefully, and there was never any charges pressed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no. We got off scot-free, if you will.
Huh.
And
were you surprised by that?
yeah, I think so. Although we were veterans, and so
Certainly.
did they really want to pick on us?
Yeah.
Like
already an unpopular war.
Yeah, very unpopular war. So we ended up going to a restaurant in New York, the upper level of this restaurant, to have something to eat, right? And this is my biggest regret. I had a signed postcard from John and Yoko.
Oh, no shit.
I don't know what happened to it,
Oh,
man.
really?
You would think that's something you would hold on to forever, right?
Wait, you ran into them?
No. What they did was they bought postcards of the Statue of Liberty,
Oh, right
and
on.
they signed them. And
Actually signed
oh
them.
yeah, they were big fans of what we did.
Oh, that's just
So, anyways,
cool.
I have no idea what I did with it. I got a lot of memorabilia, but I don't have that.
No, I what a memory though. Huh?
Yeah. It was pretty cool.
So I'm trying to get a feel for what it was like then. My father was older than you are, but also in Vietnam too, and I never could get a good feel. He was in the Navy, so he wasn't obviously on the ground
Right.
in Vietnam, but
Right.
he was there and supporting role.
Sure.
But just
Same here.
Just getting the vibe of like what the country felt like.
So it was really, really polarized. I mean, it's kind of like it is today. Very similar in that you had the people that were for the war and they hated hippies and they hated us. I don't want to get into politics,
Yeah,
but
for sure.
Nixon,
Yeah.
Nixon hated all of us. He just had everybody going after black people and anti-war protesters.
So really what we're seeing today really isn't any different than what we've been through before. Maybe just some of the nuances are different. But
yeah, but it's kind of the same.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's for sure. So you come home. It's what'd you do? 71. I mean,
when I came back, I went on unemployment because I didn't have a job, right?
Mm-hmm.
And well, then I got involved with the anti-war movement when I came back.
Okay.
So that was what I was doing for a while. I had to get out of that though. After a while, we did a whole bunch of stuff. We were all over the state protesting and going here and there, but the communists were starting to infiltrate these organizations.
Okay.
And I didn't want any part of that.
Got it.
Got it. So I got out.
By 74, was it pretty much done? I mean, we had completely gotten out of Vietnam by 74. Is that a correct assumption?
Yeah, I don't remember the exact dates.
Roughly speaking?
Yeah.
Okay. And you went into entertainment.
So actually, right after that, I went, trying to think. Yeah, I got into rock and roll via local bands.
Right on.
Actually, a group called Patchwork from Robinson Township.
Okay.
Michael and Damon Benedict, Jim Blazer.
Okay.
Jim Blazer actually he was in a bunch of bands locally here. And I actually was going to Pitt for a little while. Okay. And I ran into these guys at the student union and they were looking for a sound man. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'll do that, And so that's how I got involved. That was
rough estimate of years. What that was? Late 70s.
Early 70s.
Early 70s.
Yeah.
That was right after you got out of the service.
Yeah. I mean, it's shortly after that.
Okay.
There's a gap in there, but that's how I got my start.
Okay.
And those guys were really cool.
So from an engineering standpoint, you learned sound at that moment?
That's how I got involved. Yeah.
No shit.
I was working for my dad too at a radio station.
Okay.
So I got a whole radio station history going.
That's where
too.
I want to go to.
Yeah.
So when you say your father, what do you mean?
So my father, he was a general manager and vice president of a radio station in Mount Washington. Started out being WKJF.
Okay.
Then became WKOI. And then the call letters he was always after, WJOI. But it was an easy JOI. It was easy listening. He started
so
like the bottom.
Joy? Was it like?
Yeah.
That's what I know. Okay.
Yeah. But you'll know. So if you're standing at the Point downtown and you look up at Mount Washington, there's two towers, one on the left and one on the right. The one on the right was his radio station.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I think one of the FM stations took it over later, BZZ or something, whatever. But so I worked for him there. They had a background music service. Elevator music,
okay,
piped in music, and
like a modern day Muzak. But
it was just Muzak. It was just their brand, right?
Okay.
And so I did installations for that, and I would do troubleshooting of equipment. So
you learned the technical aspects of the work.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Okay.
That was a pretty cool job because I got to drive around the whole tri-state area. And I knew how to get everywhere 5-6 different ways, But anyway, so then I was doing that and working with this rock and roll band at the same time.
So at that time, you were digging rock and roll. Rock and roll was resonating with you?
Even way before that.
Yeah.
Even before I left for the service.
Got it. Got it.
I was around the radio station, and my father, they would get promotional copies of stuff. So there was all kind of stuff like coming in Black Sabbath,
right
I was taking it all home, man. Spirit, just all these.
But their format was different, though, right?
They were playing. That's why I was taking them home. They were never going to play that stuff.
Got it. It was so
easy listening
format, but they were
Henry
still getting They were still getting the format.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're still getting the promotional.
They would send the promotional stuff. So I took it home.
Right on.
So that's how I got my feet wet with a lot of that music. But we were talking earlier. I mentioned. Frankie Zuri and listening to Porky Chadwick. I was really into Porky back then.
Oh yeah.
Mad Mike.
Pork the Torque.
Yeah. Porky Chadwick, listen to Porky, listen to Mad Mike, got turned on to a lot of that music. So, and my grandfather, who was from McKees Rocks, when I was a young boy, I lived right across the street from them, and I would be over at his house and he'd have on all kind of music, right? And he had an orchestra. When he was a younger man in McKees Rocks.
Okay.
He had an orchestra, big orchestra. I have a picture of it at home.
Okay.
So he played violin, but he had an orchestra. So I was always around the music. Never had an interest in playing it, but always liked it.
What is it? The 70s to me is just an amazing time for music or pop culture in general for this country. The 50s and 60s go crashing into this decade called the 70s. Technology grabs a hold of the music in the late part of the decade and ushers in the 80s. I mean, the 70s is a unique decade. Would you agree?
I think even the late 60s was leading into
Moving
the 70s.
Into it.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Nothing like it, man. There was just so much good music, and so much of it was coming out of the UK.
Yeah.
Because they were listening to all the blues guys. And
just turning the volume of the amplifiers up.
That's right.
Fuzzing it out,
yeah,
right? I
mean,
I had a conversation with Jim Marshall. He was signing at a NAMM booth a decade or so ago. And I waited to the very end. It's a long line at the Marshall booth, and I waited. And I got to talk to him, and I was pretty much the last person in line. And I just said, "Hey, Mr. Marshall, thank you for the picture." I go, this has changed my life.
Yeah.
And he looked at me. He said, "Son, all that was completely unintended.
Wow.
I had no intention for any of those crazy kids to do anything with my amplifiers. I was making jazz amplifiers and stuff for big bands and more clean sounding things, and the kids just cranked it up and overdrove the tubes, creating an odd sound, and the rest is history."
That's so cool, isn't it? Take something and make something else out of it.
Yeah, right? I just thought that was such a great moment for me to hear it from the man who is partially responsible for the whole sound.
Yeah, sure.
That fuzzed out crunchy rock and roll sound came out of that, right?
Right.
With help from a lot of players, but
yeah.
That
reminds me of I hate to skip ahead.
That's what we do here.
But I know. It reminds me of I did this really cool show when I was in New Jersey called MTV had put it on. It was called Rock Influences. And it was maybe did like 10 or 12 shows. And I used to work at this theater called the Capitol Theater, which we can talk about later. But they did a show called Guitar Greats. And literally, they had Johnny Winter, they had Neil Schon, they had Dickie Betts, they had Dave Edmonds.
Wow.
They had Stray Cats. What's his name?
Brian Stetzer.
Yeah, Brian Stetzer. And they had Link Wray.
Oh, yeah.
Link Wray.
I know who Link Wray is.
But not only that.
Beat the shit out of that.
But what he did was he took his speakers and he poked holes in them to get that crazy sound.
Some people actually point to him as being the birth of heavy metal guitar.
Maybe, yeah.
He doesn't get the credit for it.
Right.
Some people think he kind of started there.
Yeah, Link Wray. So anyways, that just reminds me of the creativeness that people will just take.
Did I see also in your background too that you were involved with KQV?
So so I ended up working as a studio engineer at KQV and DVE.
Okay.
And it was one of the coolest jobs I ever had.
Imagine.
And I was an intern.
Give me some years.
Oh,
Roughly.
That was 70, 75 maybe.
Okay.
Somewhere around there, 76.
Okay.
And
when you say together, were they in the same building?
Yeah. So there was the AM station on this side, had this big space in between where they had studios and all their electronic racks and stuff.
Okay.
And then DVE was on this side.
Okay.
So
I listened to the new sound of 13Q. My mother used to have me answer the phone like that for a couple of years. It was crazy.
Oh, that's funny.
When I was a kid.
Yeah, so you could win something, right? I remember.
I listened to the new sound of 13Q.
Oh, darn.
And everybody would answer the call and they go, "You do you?" And I'm like, "I do."
So I had that job. I was a studio engineer. I literally had to go to Buffalo to get my third class FCC license.
Right on.
So I could do the meter readings, right?
Oh, right.
So I flew up there, took the test, got the license, and had this job. And the first day I was there, Steve Martin came in with a whole bunch of people, right, to do an interview. So I was like, "Oh, this is going to be pretty cool." So it was a really, I got to meet all those DJs. I loved all those people.
Yeah.
Way back.
Let's talk about that. So you're talking mid to late 70s.
So
right?
yeah. Boy, I wish I would have wrote down
Well,
some
did
dates.
Roach, did
Jimmy Roach was there. Marcy was there.
Oh, yeah.
Trevor Lay was there.
Yeah.
There was a guy named Lee Hogan.
Jack Malloy.
Malloy was there. He was the night guy.
Yeah.
I actually did some of his show one night.
Wow.
Because I was engineering and it was snowing and he couldn't get there. So I had to go into the studio and I played music until he got there. You know?
Jack was great because it was after midnight, so there was all this album rock stuff. And I'm being a big Rush head.
Yeah.
He would always play the Rush because he could get away with playing 10, 15-minute tracks.
Exactly.
With no problem.
Right.
Jack Malloy.
Yeah. So, yeah, I had that job. And what happened was I was working towards being a full-time hire. I got the job through a friend I went to school with at one time. And one of his best friends was named Ted Rossetti. He was the chief engineer there.
Okay.
And so that's how I got the job. I knew Ted, and he hired me on as it was a union gig, okay, but it was okay for me to be working there. So what they ended up doing is they ended up bringing college interns, and they booted me out.
Okay.
But I love that job, man. It was so cool. You know,
I mean, I just think of the 70s and just the amount of bands. Because, again, there wasn't any downloading then. There wasn't even MTV then.
No.
The only time you would ingest this music
Yeah.
is either hearing it on the radio and then going and buying the vinyl or the 8-track.
Right, exactly. Here's another cool thing that happened when I was there. There was this guy named Mal Redding, and he was British. And he was able to, I guess, rent studio space there. Okay. And he did this show, and I engineered it for him. It was called Over the Blue Horizon.
Okay.
And he was playing music from the UK. A lot of punk stuff.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah. And you know what? I've been in touch with him a couple of times, and he promised me he was going to be putting this stuff into electronic format, but
to download it and get
it's nothing. His shows were really, really good.
Do you have any memory or recollection from that era of when the Pistols broke in the UK? Just what, if any, there was any level of acknowledgement or understanding of what that was here, what was going on there? Like, were you aware of it?
Yeah.
You were?
Fully aware. Because I really, kind of got into that scene. Even dressing that way a little bit.
Yeah, right on.
Cutting my hair. Because I had long hair once, and I had to cut my hair. But I had tickets to go see them. And that's the show.
Leona
yeah,
Theater?
That's the show that they canceled it, man.
Yeah, and I think after that was canceled, for whatever the reason was, I don't know what the reason was.
I don't remember.
But they canceled the New York show and the Pittsburgh show, and then the decision was made to take the entire tour through the southern states.
Okay.
And I guess that's what happened. But yeah, I just always wonder, because it was just before my time that I was really cognizant of it. And then my parents, I remember being interested in it in the mid-70s, and they were already freaked out by Kiss and all this crazy shit. Then they had that song Bodies came out with the abortion reference, and there was no way that was coming into the household. So.
Right. So back then, I was really a big fan of Norman and the Diamonds back then.
Oh, right on.
And Norman I don't think he ever shared this on his interview. He would bring bands like that into Pittsburgh and book them in some of the clubs.
Okay.
Like golly, a couple of the Dead Boys.
Yeah,
I don't know if you remember them.
Yeah, I certainly do.
He brought the Police in.
No shit.
When nobody knew who they were. So yeah, he actually did book some bands back then. But I kind of was following that kind of thing. Just kind of digging that music. But that's the Diamonds were kind of like that.
They were edgy. Yeah, I always thought Norm had an element of punk to him.
He did.
Oh,
no doubt about it.
Yeah. Which made it great.
Yeah.
Just to me, because again, I wasn't old enough to really enjoy that era, but punk is basically telling the rest of these rock and rollers, look, you get nostalgia here.
Do you remember Norman was saying we were cutting up our T-shirts? And I did too.
Yeah, I get it. Safety pins, and I think
I didn't do the safety pins, but I was cutting up my T-shirts, V-necks, and cutting the sleeves off and doing that whole thing, painting tigers on my shirt.
Well, it's funny because punk was mainstreamed years later for suburban kids, and that was me.
Yeah.
In junior high, not junior high, but like a junior in high school, wearing like a sweatshirt with a safety pin on it, and it was like we were way late. Yeah, but by the time it reached us, it was years later.
But at least you got it.
We did get it, elements of it, anyways. Yeah. But that whole movement had. I mean, because to me, the Pistols were it's a landmark thing that happened. Argue musical merits or not, but it was just that moment in time was a big like tidal wave to the whole industry, you know?
So, I had a next door neighbor who was a girlfriend, an ex-girlfriend. She went to the UK, and she went to, what was the fashion district they all shopped at?
Oh, that's where the band came out of there.
Whatever, right?
Malcolm McLaren.
Yeah, but there was like a fashion area there that they bought all their clothes.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
Vivian something or other?
Yeah, I don't remember.
Sex was the name of the shop they actually would shop their clothes out
there. Joe Jackson had an album where he had his shoes, those pointy shoes. I said, you got to buy me a pair of those shoes. So I gave her some money, and she bought me a pair of black ones.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Right on.
Yeah.
So you left radio in what year, approximately?
78, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, around 78.
And where'd you head from there?
Well, so I had a whole bunch of gigs going on. In fact, I got to just take a step back.
Absolutely.
Riding through Coriopolis tonight, I remembered I worked for a cable company here called Astro Cable.
Yeah, on Fifth Avenue. Yeah, that used to be our cable company.
Exactly, and I worked there for about a year.
Okay,
installing cable TV and climbing up poles.
That was the first cable company.
That's right.
I think
around
in
here,
this area. Yeah,
they had HBO. I mean, that was
they
the
had
big
a box,
thing. Yeah,
you pressed 3 or 4 buttons on top, and one of those was HBO. Because if you didn't have that, which we initially did not.
Yeah.
We would have to look at the squiggly lines. Is that a breast? Is that a nipple?
Right.
I think I see a nipple.
Oh yeah, that's right. They would. That's how they would mask it, right? Crazy. But anyway, so around. I guess it was around 70. Well, I was working for a bunch of bands back then. Like after Patchwork.
Yes.
I got involved with this band called Christopher Wray.
Okay.
And I was introduced to them through my sister Melanie, who lived in Shadyside. And these guys used to play at a place out there as an acoustic band.
Okay.
But they wanted to put together an electric thing, right? So, and they were looking for help. So I went out and I met them. I listened to them, and I started working for them. And there was Vaughn and Bill and Pete, Tony, and Frank, and they were like a country rock band.
Okay.
They were really good. And so they started to really take off in Pittsburgh. We would play all over the place. The Decade was one of our places. In fact, sometimes we'd be there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night. They were pretty popular.
Jeez.
So okay. I worked with them for a couple of years, and then just kind of had a falling out. It wasn't happening anymore. And I just kind of moved around. I would just sort of freelance. I worked for Hollywood Music doing sound. And, there were a couple other bands. Like I would do stuff with the Diamonds sometimes, and just other bands. So I was just sort of freelancing.
Okay.
For a while there, and then what happened was I got a job at Pittsburgh Convention Center.
Okay.
Just opened up. Yeah. Brand new. I get a call. I'm in bed. I get the phone. I answer the phone. And this guy says, "Hey, we got a job. We're looking for a sound engineer. I understand you do that." I say, "Yeah." So I went down. They hired me, and I worked at the convention center for a while.
Okay.
And that didn't pan out because I ended up moving chairs and tables around all night, and that was horrible, man. And the Caesar Engler.
Right on.
They bought the Stanley Theatre. This is a really cool story.
Yeah.
So the Caesar Engler bought the Stanley Theatre, and they bought a sound system from Clare Brothers. You remember them?
Yeah, I do.
Clare Brothers. They were the biggest back in the day.
Yep.
They were out of Pennsylvania. So they bought some cabinets and some horns and some tweeters and a 32-channel Yamaha mixer and some outboard gear, and they had a PA system, but they needed somebody to run it. So I got the job. Now they had the PA because sometimes bands will come through and they're looking for a sound for a PA. So they were able to rent that out.
Right. Right.
But they also wanted me to work shows. Okay. So I didn't know this at the time. I was ignorant, stupid, whatever. It was a union gig. It was the IATSE did the shows.
Got it.
Okay. And the Teamsters did the trucks.
Okay.
So when they hired me and they said, "We want you to hire a couple more guys." Okay. to work the shows. I'm like, this is really cool, right? We're going to be stagehands at the Stanley Theatre. Well, when the union got hold of this, they were going to burn the place down.
Damn.
That's a true story.
I believe it.
And so Ed, or Rich and Pat had to negotiate with them. They said, okay, look, you can use 2 of your guys for the shows. All right. So they were looking to save money because the stagehands,
sure,
big cost, right? So I ended up working as a stage manager for them, but I would work the shows as a stagehand. And it didn't matter. I would have other friends that I would bring in and work shows with me.
Sure.
So that was how I got that gig. And I was there about 3 years maybe.
So the band you must have seen come through there.
Lots.
The Stanley.
Lots.
To me, again, I'm not a big fan of the Benetton. I think the Stanley was changed. I guess the Cultural Trust bought the Stanley, I think, ultimately from...
Yeah, they sold it, right.
Yeah, and that's okay.
It's performing arts now.
It's a beautiful thing, but it's just not the same, man. The Stanley Theatre
The Stanley
was
Theatre,
something else.
They were... I know for a few years running, they were the /1 theater in the United States and the #1 moneymaker in the United States.
I believe it, man.
But worked a lot of good shows.
Yeah. Any that are memorable?
The most memorable show, 2 of them. I wrote those down.
Okay.
So one of them, this is sad. Carly Simon. She came to town to do 2 shows, right? And she was, married to James Taylor, right? Right. This is right after she was going through a divorce, right? And she had 2 Pittsburgh guys in her band. Pete Hewlett.
Yeah.
And Sid McGinnis.
Pete, we're trying to get you on this show, pal.
and Sid McGinnis.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If for those who don't know who Sid is, he played with David Letterman what's his name? He was in the David Letterman
in the band.
Yeah, what's that guy's name? The keyboard player.
Paul Schaefer.
Paul Schaefer. Yeah.
Yep.
That's Sid. So anyways, they're coming to Pittsburgh, right? Their family's there, whatever. She has a nervous breakdown on stage.
On stage.
I
did not hear that story.
She just lost it.
Wow.
Comes off the stage. Road manager's talking to her, and I'm like, what's going on here, right? So she goes back out. She gets some members from the audience to come up on stage with her. She tries to do it again. She gets through a song, tries another. She can't do it. End of show.
Wow.
Yeah.
How that?
So
how'd the crowd take it?
They were pretty bummed out.
Yeah, I could think,
I ran up front, to get Rich or Pat, I forget which one, say, hey, this thing is probably going to fall apart. So it did, and I really felt bad for Pete and Sid because their families were here and they're doing 2 shows.
Absolutely.
That's one memorable show.
Okay.
I mean, there were a lot of great shows there.
Okay.
My favorite show was Bob Marley.
Okay. What year would that have been approximately? Again, guessing. Just guessing.
79.
Late 70s? Okay.
Whatever.
Okay.
That show was unbelievable, man. It's like, it just felt like the building was moving. The bass sound. Anyway. But I did his very last show again. He came, his very last show, that was a couple years later. He was dying. So he did his very last show at the Stanley Theatre.
I didn't know that.
And he died a few months later.
That was his last performance.
Very last performance
Did not know
ever.
that. Did not know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
They just had maybe a couple of years ago, they had a 25th anniversary of that or something, but that was his very last performance. And, it was pretty good. For how sick he supposedly was,
right.
He did a pretty good job. So those are some big memories from the Stanley.
Let me ask you this question. It might be slightly technical, but let me get your thoughts on this. So I love the 70s sound. I don't mind the tape hiss. I love analog. I'm an analog junkie.
Nothing wrong with tape hiss.
Right. I'm an analog junkie, but I'm also of the belief, Bobby, that technology's come so far now that, oversampling and the rest of it is so good that they can almost replicate the analog sound, if it makes any sense. But have you ever marveled at how far we've come technology-wise? Because I had to be explained as a kid that like a tape machine was like a circular stream of analog tape that would just go back and forth. The echo machine, like an echoplex and things like that. All that technology was so beautiful in its most organic form.
Right.
And I think that today we just take stuff for granted.
Yeah.
How that was made at one time.
Mellotron, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Who's ever heard of a Mellotron, right?
But it was an interesting time too, because I think toward the end of the 70s, that's when synthesizers really started rolling, and the rest of them started to take hold. Am I right? Am I right?
Yeah. They became more mainstream in everybody's music, the synthesizer. But I'm not real well versed in all that stuff. I was more, I was a little technical.
Sure.
I was more into really listening to the music.
Yeah, for sure.
But as far as the technology goes, let me put it a different way. Okay. So last week I was with some friends I used to work. I was in IT. That's how I spent the rest of my career.
Right.
And I was with some friends I used to work with, right? And right before I retired, we built a data center. Okay. We're a Fortune 500 big company, right? So we're putting in a brand new data center. We had this huge space, this huge cage, right? Full of racks, full of equipment, right?
Okay.
Storage and servers and, and switches and routers, right?
Okay.
So I'm talking to this guy the other night, and I'm asking him, hey, so we still have the data center up there in Greenville? And he goes, you remember when we built it? And I go, yeah, you wouldn't believe it right now. He said it went from this big down to this because everything is solid state now.
Got it.
I mean, just the form factors are so small because the way I don't know how they do that with all the silicon.
Yeah.
But so technology has really changed everything.
It's changed music in huge ways too. I think it also. Do you remember the mid '80s when the first CDs were coming out? How bad they sounded. They were tinny and like it was like you could tell they were compressed or something wasn't right.
Right.
They were figuring it out.
That's it, figuring it out, right? Because it's pretty good format now.
Yeah, they definitely figured it out. Let me ask you a little bit about sound production. Nothing real technical, but when you say you ran sound for like the Stanley, what does that actually encompass? Procedurally, like what does that mean?
Okay, so let me take it from how a show would be run.
Okay.
So every band has a writer. Okay,
let me get you over just a little bit.
Oh, sorry. Every band has what's called a writer, and the writer's all. It's So it's
list of demands.
Yeah, so they would say we need this kind of a PA system, right? We need this many channels.
Got it. Yeah,
blah 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 blah. So that's what we would work off of, and so I would help. The stagehands would set it all up. I mean, I was the stage manager too, but I worked.
Sure.
So we just set the PA up, move the console wherever they wanted it, and they typically would have their own sound engineer with them, who would do the sound.
Okay.
There was a couple of occasions I did Fats Domino once. I might have done somebody else. They just don't travel with a sound engineer, so you get to do it.
So that's part of their rider is that the venue must provide a sound engineer for them.
If they don't carry their own.
What's that involve running sound? I mean,
well, you just start with the sound check.
Yeah.
You know how many mics you have on stage. You know where they are.
Okay.
You know who's using them. And as they play and sing,
you adjust.
You just try to adjust to get a good balance. Right. And I remember with Fats Domino, I think his road manager was out there with me just making sure that, it sounded the way they wanted it to sound. He was tough, though, because he didn't use a boom. He had an SM58 that just was on a mic stand. And he just he's singing back here, and you're trying to ride the level to hear him, right? And so that was challenging. But I didn't really get to do it for major acts. Just, they would just come in and use the PA system and have their own sound engineer.
And again, it's just so cool. The era, like today, I'm sure it's much different and all computerized and all wireless and all that stuff. But that's not how it was back then.
No, but, I had fun, like with Chris Rye, especially because I worked with them for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And, it was just really fun getting their sound down every night, trying to get it perfect. Because they had a great mix of instruments. They had a drummer, right? Bass player, Von Lofstad, who he would be a good interview. Oh, he doesn't live here anymore though. He played Gibson Electric, and he played a steel pedal. And Pete Bender played fiddle, harmonica, and slide guitar. And those guys were awesome. So that was really fun, trying to get all that balanced and mixed at night.
And you had no school for this. You learned this all on the job?
Yeah. I think that's the way it is with everybody.
Most of them, yeah.
Yeah, you just pick it up. I mean, I know there's schools you can go to be an audio engineer, but it's always better to learn it, your trade craft on the spot.
So did you also do any audio engineering for recordings?
No.
Okay.
I did have a friend who had a recording studio, John Grill, and I would go out there and fool around with him sometimes. That was interesting. He had this little studio in Shadyside, down this really sides. He called me up one time. He goes, "Foreigners here. They have their truck, this tractor trailer out in front of my house. They could hardly get it down the road. They want to come in and work on something that they're doing, So he was pretty excited about that.
Do you remember a venue in Pittsburgh called the Love-In?
Yeah.
Can you give me some background on that? Because I
don't even know if I've ever been there.
Okay. I think I was dragged there when I was an infant. I would have no recollection of this, but I think the story was when Terry and Gravel, Corporate and Hand, were playing in Gravel. I think they
played there.
They carried me up into the Love-In, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot of clubs that I never made it to. There's a lot of clubs that I did get to. That I don't remember.
That was a thing, though, right? The Love-In was a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I can't find any real information online about it, but I always remember hearing that as a kid.
I don't even know where that was.
Love-In. I think it was upstairs. It was like kind of a fire trap, like a lot of the old clubs were.
Yeah, there were a lot of them, too.
Yeah, and that's great, though, man. That's not the same anymore.
So today, I took my daughter. We went downtown, right?
Right.
And I'm going through. I'm staying out in Silver Lane, and so we're going down the old way through Stowe, and we come through the tunnel and we make a right on Island Avenue, wherever it is, before you get to the bridge.
Right.
And I said, Allie, see that club that says Erotica? That used to be like a really cool place, Mancini's.
Yeah.
They had some great shows there. I spent a lot of time in there.
They did.
They did. So there were a lot of really good clubs.
I remember seeing Joe Perry when he
I was at that show.
When he left Aerosmith for a while and had the Joe Perry Project.
I was at that show, yeah.
And then I think I snuck in to see Queensryche.
Were they there?
They were there.
Love that band, man.
When they were first starting out.
Great band.
And I think they were either on tour with Kiss and they had a day off and they played there, or maybe it was even before that. But yeah, that was a band you saw and you're like, wow, that's going to be something.
Yeah, they had a lot of national acts come through.
They did.
There,
They did.
But then a lot of local bands would play there too,
No question about it.
As a matter of fact, that was the very last gig that Diamond Rio did, was at Mancini's.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah, and I was there because I was...
Was it the farewell gig, or they didn't know
it was
the end? They didn't know it was the end. They was just imploded from that point.
No, that was it. They knew it was the end.
They announced it?
Yeah.
That was the farewell gig then. Okay.
But, to maybe step back on that, listening to Norman talk about how the band broke up, I was really close with those people, and I had no idea that was going on. They just weren't that interested. Now that I reflect back, I could see how that was happening.
Really?
Yeah, and I think that was really good. It's too bad because Norman's spot on. That band was badass, man. They were so good.
I remember.
The first time I saw them, I was at the Decade with two friends of mine. And I didn't know who they were. I mean, I heard of them. They blew me away. Warren King, that guy was just amazing. He was so good. But their music, they wrote all their music. Their songs were amazing. And they delivered them like just so good. Mm-hmm. I love the Diamonds. Diamond Rio was really good.
You went into cybersecurity, right?
Yeah.
So how did you get into that?
So I'll start here.
Okay.
I was married once before, and I had a lot of trouble with drugs and alcohol. That's why I got out of the business.
Okay, out of the music business.
Yeah, out of the, doing all that stuff. So I went to electronics school, and I did great. I made straight A's. I loved it. It was really cool. and I got a good job from it. I got a job working for Blue Cross and Blue Shield in New Jersey. I was living in New Jersey then.
Okay.
That's how my IT career started. So I was there for 8 years, and I had an opportunity to move. I wanted to get more involved in networking, literally networking, computers, right? And so I had a job interview at a company, Fortune 500, and they needed somebody to take care of a couple of their facilities. And I had the experience with the technology that they had, and I got a job there. And I was there 22 years. My last 12 years, I got involved with security, cybersecurity. And it was just natural for me to just kind of move into that space.
Okay.
Because we needed people to do it. You know, we needed security in our company.
Okay.
So that's how I got involved in cybersecurity. And the last 5 years that I was in that job, I managed our global department.
Okay.
Which was pretty cool position to have. But I loved that. I love what I did. It's just time to get out.
Does that technology, because I imagine it's constantly changing, right? Computer stuff, like almost like
all
daily or monthly, monthly at the minimum, right?
Yeah.
Roughly speaking.
Yeah.
So cybersecurity in the area you're working in, it probably looks completely different than what it is today, or is the premise the same? Its
premise is the same. Some of the technologies that they come up with to help deter and protect change, you know, they get better. Just like any technology, you know, it just improves and advances and gets better. My wife she still works, and Dune is she's a cybersecurity analyst. So we still talk about it. I still try to keep up with it. The thing is the bad guys are always one step ahead. You know, I mean, they really are. You know, they're just really good at what they do. So,
so when you say bad guys, the people obviously are trying to circumvent a client and steal a client's customers or money, or just destroy their framework, right? That's part of the reasons, motivation probably as to why they attack.
Well, no, there's different things. Let's just say the Chinese, for example. All right, they love to steal intellectual property. They'll steal it any way they can, whether it's breaking into your network, putting an employee in your company,
a plant.
Yeah, absolutely, man. They do this stuff. They live for that, right? Then you've got nation states that literally it's a full-time job for people. They'll come to work and they just hack all day, right? They write code. They figure out how to write backdoors into systems, how to write what do you call it? My mind just went blank.
That's all right. That's all right.
No, I don't know why I should know this. The stuff that encrypts your data.
Okay.
What the heck they call that? Anyway, so they're just always at it.
Like cloaking or something?
No. No, let's just say you click on a link, and you shouldn't click on that link, and the next thing you know, all your data is encrypted. Okay, and they want Bitcoin to get it back. Okay.
Oh, that's extortion.
It is extortion, but this is a really big deal. So they'll do this to individuals, but they really like to go after businesses.
I've heard of that before. Yeah.
You know what? I don't know why my mind went blank. It's such a big deal.
So basically, you're saying that these hackers will set up a circumstance where they will steal your stuff.
Yeah.
And then charge you a fee.
Right.
Usually requesting
to get
Bitcoin as the currency.
And right.
And they extort you.
And here's the other thing. You don't even have to know how to write that code. You can subscribe to somebody and buy it and use it. I mean, it's big, it's business. So there's nation states doing that. And you know, if you don't have a good backup,
naturally it's a crime in America, right?
It is a crime.
It's a crime, punishable crime.
Yeah. I mean, it's bad news, right? So there's nation states involved in it. There's just the criminal element that's involved. North Korea, this is probably how they make most of their money, because they don't grow anything. They don't trade anything. They just use crime to make money, right? So it's still a big deal today. In fact, there's probably a real need for more people, more cyber people to be involved with the government agencies or the Fortune 500 companies to, to help stop this stuff.
I think Americans have a lot of arrogance built into us that, we have the smartest minds in the world and the smartest IT people and the smartest this and the smartest that we're not open to the concept that maybe, when it comes to computer technology or cyber warfare, that, China is doing things and Russia's doing things and North Korea's doing things that I think we tend to look at those countries as we put them on the lower tier
they're
level.
smart.
You know what I mean?
Iranians, they got it together. They know what they're doing. They're doing this because that's their agenda. Okay. America's agenda is try to protect us from that, right?
Okay.
And I think America should fight back more than they do. Maybe they do and we just don't know it. But that's a really good field to be in today. You can make a lot of money too.
Yeah, the only little bit of experience that I have with that, which was not really even experience, but obviously going back to the fear of Y2K, which was supposed to be a catastrophe and
non-event,
being like nothing.
Why
wasn't it an event? I mean,
because
what happened there? In layman's terms, why did it not fuck up the world?
People fixed their stuff. They made it so it wouldn't break.
So the Y2K ultimately was a good thing.
Yeah.
So it was all that preparatory work was actually needed.
Nothing happened. I mean, I remember being on standby. I was working then, and we're all right. Is anything going to happen? Nothing happened, man. Non-event, and that's because everybody fixed their code, and they got smart. Don't ever do that again.
Yeah, I remember that absolutely being the thing.
I mean, there might have been some one-offs where bad stuff happened, but that was their fault for not fixing it.
What year did you retire from IT?
2017.
Okay.
So it's been 5 years, a little over 5 years.
So you've seen a complete swath of technology through your years of working in IT and cybersecurity.
Absolutely.
Right?
When I started, my first job, I had a Radio Shack TRS-80, right? And from there, I graduated to an IBM computer, and then now I use a Mac. But you've seen the whole 8088, 8086, 386, the 486, Pentium.
1, 2, and 3, and
now
4.
You're at an M2 on a Mac.
On a Mac,
yeah.
Right.
So there's
in-house built.
And I remember, this is really interesting. Way back then, I remember I used to read the magazines. I was really into the technology, and they used to say, "Man, there's just no way they're going to be able to make these substrate wafers. The physical properties of resistance and capacitance and inductance and all this will never work." Man, look what they're doing with it today, man. It's crazy, right?
Yeah, fast forward 20 years where we're going to be.
It's scary.
It is scary. Yeah, the AI, does that ever scare you when you think about it, like AI and all that?
Nah.
That it's going to become like its own sentient being and take over the world?
I don't really think about it, so it doesn't scare me.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just worry about where we're going. At times I ponder it for sure. So you retired in 2017, but you started a unique fitness journey in 2013.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? I want to talk a little bit about that.
Okay, so
you were 63.
I was 63. Been in and out of the gyms, just going and not doing much and not really eating very healthy. And I had a really good primary care physician. I still have him today, right? And every year I go for my physical, he'd say, "Bobby, you got to do something. You got to get up off the couch. You got to do something." So back in 2013, I had my physical, and he said, "Look, you got to do something, right?"
So what was he saying you need to correct at that time?
I was overweight.
Okay.
And I had my blood pressure and stuff was okay, but I had high cholesterol. I was on a statin, and he just said, "Look, you got to do something." So I told my wife, "Hey, Mark's on my case, right?" So my wife got me a personal trainer at a sports club up the street from where we live.
Okay.
Right? And I started working with this woman, right? And I remember the first workout. I went home and sat down for 2 hours on the couch because it was just
kicked
horrible.
your ass.
Yeah. So so I was doing that, and I was starting to eat better. I was like counting my calories and eating better.
Right.
And I was seeing results, right? And I was feeling better. And I would go to the sports club and I'd be by myself. And I was like, what am I going to do today? You know, I didn't really have a set program. I knew how to use all the machines and
like
whatever.
A regimen.
I would just, okay, this is what I'm going to do today. You know, this is what I'm going to do today. And that was kind of boring. So I came home that summer here, where I'm staying today at my brother-in-law and my brother and his wife. And his wife was doing CrossFit. And she came home and she's like soaking wet, right? I'm like, where the heck were you? Oh, I just came from the CrossFit gym. I was like, what's that? So she explains it to me, right? Piqued my curiosity. I go back home. I start looking around for gyms. And next thing I know, literally right up the street from my house, this CrossFit gym is going to open, right?
Okay.
So I joined when they opened. This is October 2013.
Right on.
Haven't stopped. It was just, I loved it because it was different. It was hard. We worked out in a group. There was like other people in there. We're all doing the same thing. We're encouraging each other.
Right.
And so that's how I got started. And I was going like 3 days a week, and we were lifting weights, and we were running, and we were doing burpees, and we were doing all this really, really hard stuff that, you know, like you might lay on the floor when you're done, but you felt really good. And it was, I could see results. And so I would go 3 days a week, then 4, then 5. Sometimes I was going 6 days a week. If you're into it, it's really addicting.
It's what I hear about CrossFit.
Yeah. It's really, really cool. And listen, there's no age limit on it.
Okay.
I'm proof of that. I'm 73 years old and I'm killing it in the gym, right?
Well, give us some background on CrossFit from what you know. Like,
well, CrossFit actually, it's a sport. Okay. It's grown from where it started, back in, probably around 2004 or 5. To today, they have CrossFit games every year, and the sport itself, the athletes that compete, they're amazing people. I mean, they eat really well. They watch what they eat. They train 3-4 hours a day.
Right.
But CrossFit itself is basically like this: we go into the gym, we have an hour. Okay, you warm up. You do like a general warm-up, then you might do a specific warm-up based on some of the movements that you're going to be doing, right? You go through your warm-up, then typically we'll go through a weightlifting session for 15 minutes, 20 minutes. We do Olympic weightlifting, so it's deadlifts, cleans, jerks, overhead squats, front squats, back squats, and then we'll do a workout. So the workouts can be anywhere from 10 minutes to 40 minutes, depending, right? And the workouts consist of different movements, running, pull-ups, push-ups, weightlifting, certain lifts. We have these things called echo bikes. We have rowers. So it's constantly varied. It's always different. And the workouts could be, you might be doing 2 movements. You might be doing 5 movements of certain reps. And that's basically what it is. So you get a lot of resistance training. You got a lot of workouts that you're building your stamina, and your breathing, and you're sometimes not enjoying it, but you always push through, because guess what? The person beside you is pushing through.
Yeah,
and that's
there's some beauty in that.
There's total beauty in that. And in our gym, the dynamic in our gym is just amazing. It's about 70% married couples. And they're in there working together, or, you know, maybe one's in the morning and one's in at night, depending on their work schedules. And the kids are there. And it's just an amazing dynamic. But these are all really fit people. You know, they're healthy. They're staying out of the doctor's office. They're going to be staying out of the doctor's office when they're 60 years old if they keep doing this.
You probably feel better than you feel. I'm sorry, you probably feel better today than you probably felt when you were 63.
Absolutely.
When you started the journey, right?
And before that, for sure.
Right on.
Yeah. So this is the healthiest I've ever been.
Well, you certainly don't look your age, that's for certain.
Thank you.
Not even close.
I don't feel it,
Not even close.
But It's just been, the CrossFit journey's been amazing. My daughter does it, Allie. She was a gymnast. Both of my daughters were gymnasts through grade school and high school. And I started doing it, and after I started doing it, she got into it. She's really good at it. Having that gymnastics background really, really helps a lot, because
I bet
they're used to gripping bars, and they're used to standing on a 3-inch beam. And so that, they can do pull-ups. She walks in the gym, she could do pull-ups right away. She can stand on her hands,
Yeah.
But anyways,
core strength.
And core strength. Oh, yeah. That's core strength, probably the most important thing about all this, because everything you do, you're basically tightening up your core when you do it. So that's sort of a thumbnail sketch of CrossFit.
Is nutrition part of it, or diet plans part of it, or is that something separate?
It's separate, but most people will go for that.
What's your thoughts on diet?
It's really important.
What's worked for you?
So what's worked for me is cutting out things like sugar. I don't drink. I'm a recovering alcoholic, so I've never had the alcohol part of it. I tend to shop the perimeter of the grocery store, because that's where the vegetables are, and the fruit,
the berries,
and all that stuff. You walk down the aisles, and that's all processed food. It's not good for you. So making sure the food is fairly pure.
Do you eat meat?
Oh yeah, for sure. I'll eat anything like that. That's good protein. Not everybody's
the best.
Exactly, man.
The best, absolutely.
But chicken, meat, white pork, green vegetables, rice, potatoes. Getting the good carbs, not the processed carbs, is good. Sugar is probably the worst thing for you.
So I agree with you, and that would probably be the linchpin of most diet failures, is that addictive nature of sugar.
It's really addictive.
It's something, huh?
Yeah, it is. And it really contributes to the chronic disease. This is why you see people walking around that are overweight, and their joints are messed up because of inflammation. And I noticed right away when I stopped eating sugar. I'll partake now, not a lot, but I felt so much better. All my joints were moving better. Yeah. I slept better.
You know what? Let's talk about that for a second. So for me, when I lost the weight and got on my own regimen, it's worked well for me. Part of that was eliminating processed foods and really drastically reducing sugar of any kind,
right?
Unless it's naturally occurring. And even there, I watch.
Yeah.
When I did that, I had some gout issues in prior years with my toe and some of my joints. And once I eliminated those bad foods and changed, it went away.
I believe you.
No issues whatsoever with my ability to play guitar.
Yeah.
I got my life. I guess I'm saying is I got my life back.
Yeah.
By doing something as simple as just making solid choices. But I had a father who passed a couple years ago, and he worked like a dog, great guy, but never took care of his diet. And he would rather take the insulin injection and still eat the bowl of ice cream. And I grew up watching that, Bobby, and I was saying, wait a second, if he doesn't have the ice cream, he might not need that insulin injection.
That's right.
To me, it was a very easy decision to make.
And the whole diabetes thing, if you have type 2, you can definitely get rid of it.
Absolutely. 100%.
If you have type 1, you're stuck with it. You're born with that, right?
Yeah.
But type 2, you can make it go away if you eat healthy. And, you got to do a little bit of moving, too. I'm not saying you have to do CrossFit, but you should walk, maybe run, ride a bike, do something. But the food aspect is real important.
I think the older we get, too, and again, I'm the furthest thing from a nutritionist or a gym rat or anything, but the idea of moving and doing some exertion, some days a lot, some days maybe not so much, but just moving constantly, not sitting places for long periods of time.
Right.
That's kind of where I'm at with, I just want to keep my body in motion, because the more I move, the better my joints feel.
Exactly.
It sounds nuts, but that's
the
reality
that's
of it for me.
That's true.
And
having that mobility, you're talking ankles, knees, hips, shoulders, all that, and they're all connected. So
for me, I do 4.5 miles of walking every evening.
Okay.
And I deal with a 20-pound weight vest.
That's good.
And now I am literally knocked off my feet by the time I get
Probably
home.
get your heart rate up a little bit, right?
Yeah. And
You got to get that heart
do
rate
that
up.
push-ups every other night. I do like a good set of push-ups, but that generally is like it's kept the weight off.
Yeah.
Feel great.
Yeah.
But you can always be doing different things too, you know. But I just find it interesting that, you know, the solution's right there. You just got to want it bad enough, you know.
You know what? And that's really true. And I'll tell you, our gym, it's an amazing gym, and it's pricey.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but it's pricey for a reason, right?
What's the
And
cost of your health, right?
Exactly. We'll have people come in, and they'll see it. They'll want to do it, and when we tell them how much it costs, they'll say, "Oh, I can't afford that." And we'll tell them, "Yes, you can." Okay, start looking at how you're spending your money. If you really want this,
Look at the fast food cost a
you'll,
month.
You'll start cutting out
course.
this and that, right? If you
course.
really want this, not only that, you're not going to be spending that money 20 years from now getting your knees replaced or, you know, because you're overweight. And, you know, I mean, it's the truth of it. And actually, that's why CrossFit started. The guy who started it, Greg Glassman, right? He saw the chronic disease issue that was going on here. And the doctors, all they do is give you a medicine to mask it, right? They don't, even today, I think it's starting to change a little bit, but they don't teach nutrition. They don't say, hey, you know, you need to be like moving and working out. So he came up with this program of moving and eating healthy.
Yep.
And it took off. You know,
simple concept.
There's about 14,000 gyms around the world right
that's
now.
amazing.
Yeah. And it's really, really like competitive too. It's pretty cool.
What's interesting to me too is you get all this advice from your local family physician, and I'm not degrading anybody, but half the physicians I've ever been associated with are overweight themselves, and most of them smoke. I mean, so it's like they're not coming from a place of like, hey,
Right.
I abide to these laws.
Right.
I'm proof that you can do it.
Right.
So I think that is demoralizing to the public when their own physicians don't, you know, abide by what they preach.
And yeah, right. I agree. You know, that's why I felt fortunate. My doctor is he's a cyclist. He rides,
Right.
and he's healthy.
There's some validity to that.
Yeah. But the thing is when they go through school, they don't talk about nutrition.
Right.
They talk about everything else, but
It's just a newer thing, right? And I think some of them are co-opting that now. But again, the message is not going to land well if it's coming from a place that's contradictory to what you're saying.
exactly.
I think that's a problem that nobody really wants to talk about that because it's uncomfortable.
Well, they do talk about it in CrossFit, but you know, you got to be involved there. They really have a push on for getting more medical people involved. We have a couple doctors in our gym, and these guys are amazing, you know. But you're right. That's an epidemic.
Are you familiar with Mark Sisson? He started with a blog 20 years ago called Mark's Daily Apple, and it turned into he wrote a book called The Primal Blueprint, which was a form of keto, but it really wasn't quite as restrictive. But anyways, that he's turned it into an industry, Mark Sisson. But I think he also, if I'm not mistaken, he's connected in some way with CrossFit.
He might be.
Yeah.
That doesn't ring a bell, but that doesn't mean he isn't.
But the primal blueprint, that primal way of eating, really resonated with me, years ago. And of course, in life, you go we always go through diets, and that's why diets don't work. And then finally, when you make the decision to look, let's make a change. Let's not do a diet. Let's not do a fast.
Don't call it that, right?
Let's just change our lifestyle.
Yeah.
That's the stuff that works,
Yeah,
right? But it's
does.
hard. People, they want the easy route, right?
It is hard, Eric. You're right. That's why people fail, because it can be really, really hard. You really have to dedicate yourself to it. You have to really want it.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I'm different from somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew I needed to change, and I found something to help me do it.
Bingo.
That was the thing. So
it
doesn't matter what you're doing, 9 rounds or whatever this boot camp is over here, or running marathons. Do it.
Find what works for you.
Yeah, and eat better.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. I was always told that the battle is won in the kitchen in terms of weight loss, and the battle is won there. You have to incorporate the rest, but the argument being like, you can go work out like crazy, but if you're still eating like crap, you're not really going to see the gains that you want, or
you might
the losses
see some, but you
want,
won't see the gains that
but
you
when
really
those work
can get.
in harmony,
in harmony,
it really is something. But I was 240-ish when the pandemic started, which, I look back now, that's like a different person. Like,
you are. That's amazing.
I can't imagine
it's
holding
crazy.
that weight. Like so when I put that 20-pound weight vest on, like tonight I'll put it on and I'm like, oh Christ, it's 20 pounds.
Right.
So, I mean, it's manageable, but it's like, that's 20 pounds. And I think that's only taking me up to like from 175 to 195.
Right.
I was at 240 plus.
That's crazy, right? You look amazing.
Where did it go? Like, my thing is, I can't remember.
Disappears.
I can't remember
it's
what
all
it was
fat,
like.
so it goes away.
Lumbering through life like that. It just.
Every time I pick up a 45-pound weight to put on my barbell, I'm like, I was carrying this around with me. And just think what that does to your joints.
Exactly. And you wonder why you're sore and you hurt and all that.
Yeah. And I'm not knocking overweight people. It's just that you can do something about it.
Yeah, I guess that's the thing too. It's and I will tell you, I've had some frustration with people when you make a change of some type. You often get asked by folks, "Hey, what'd you do?" Because everybody wants to know, and you want to share with them. Oh, this worked for me. Then I would pull back after a while because most people that are asking you really, when you tell them, they won't get invested. They just won't do it. But you look back and say it's not that hard. It's believe me, I'm a schmuck. If I can do it, anybody can do it.
Same here, Eric.
Anybody can do it, man. I just like if the chocolate cake is there, it's not even in my mind that I will eat that. Right. I don't demonize it. It's just I know that's not going to get me where I want to be.
Right.
So I don't eat it.
Right.
But I understand that food is a lure. I used to love food. I get it. Mm-hmm. But you got to want something more than you want the taste of food.
Yes.
And that's hard, I think, for Americans.
Well,
I think it is.
It tastes good. We know that.
Sugar is something, man. Yeah. That's like I get it.
Even like Kentucky Fried Chicken, man. I love that stuff. But it's not good for you.
Yeah, I guess I don't know, Bobby. It's like look, CrossFit. There are days you don't want to go do that. But
what, honestly,
but you do it.
Not most days I can't wait to get there.
Yeah,
but there are those days like I don't want to work out today, but when you do it, you feel good.
Of course. But again, you have to overcome like your inner demons at that moment. Like, hey, I could probably go do something else today. Take a break, right? But
it's funny. My daughter and I were talking about that because she works out 5 days a week too, right?
Yeah.
Thursday's my day off where I schedule stuff, right? So that was yesterday, but I didn't work out today, and so.
You're itching,
I'm bummed.
You're itching.
But,
right?
She said, well, she goes, Dad, you know what? It's probably good to have a little more recovery. And I go, yeah, there you go.
There's the word. That's the word. But you can't enjoy recovery if you haven't done anything.
True.
Recovery is meaningless if you haven't actually done anything.
That's true. That's true.
I just really changing my lifestyle completely and knowing how much better I feel now. Mm-hmm. Plus, I'm never hungry. I am never hungry, man. When you get off the sugar, it's just, I have to remind myself to eat. Now, maybe that's the effects of COVID. I don't know. I just don't have an appetite. But knowing how much better I feel and then looking out in the society and seeing other people that were at the same weight that I kind of was, I'm thinking to myself, man, I don't say anything, but it's like, there's a better way.
I do the same thing.
There's a better quality of life outside of your finances and your relationships. There's a better internal quality of life.
Quality of life. That is it.
It's out there and it's definitely possible.
Yeah.
It is. I guess my point is I wish that on everybody.
Me too. You can't beat them over the head with it, but you sure do wish it. When you see somebody, I'm like, man. So I go to my cardiologist, right? I've had a couple of what they call AFibs.
Yeah.
I'm fine. They just happen, and so so I have a cardiologist that I see every year, right?
Right.
And when I'm there, I see these people in line, and I'm like, oh man, that sucks.
Yeah, it's just we're just really big. As a society, we're big, and I don't, and I understand there's a lot of factors involved, and it's a tough conversation because people want to label you as uncaring or heartless or whatever, and that's not. I'm not. I'm just making an observation.
Yeah.
I feel sad. I go to the mall. I look around. It's like, it's not good.
Well,
it's not good.
There's a segment of society that they eat poorly because they don't have money.
I get that.
And that's who I really feel bad
of course,
for,
because 100%.
Yeah.
It costs. How do I say this? It does cost more money to eat better.
It does,
but that can be overcome with more discipline. It's a hard pill to swallow.
Figure out how to, do it. You could probably figure it out.
There's a way if you want it bad enough.
Yeah.
It just depends on what people want.
Right.
And everybody's position is different. You're a single parent and you got young kids, and I get it. Everybody's circumstance is different. I just feel bad that there's a lot of illness out there. I think that is preventable.
Very preventable.
It's
very preventable,
and that's the sad part of it for me.
Yeah. There's this myth, when you're young, you're healthy, you're playing sports, you're doing well, and then you start to get older, and you just start to, in your mind, you're thinking this is okay, this is the way life is. I'm not as good as I used to be, but I'm still okay, and then you just keep transitioning into poor health, but society tells you it's okay because so many other people are like that. And that's normal part now. Of the trap.
That's the norm. Yeah, if you accept the normal, you'll never get out of it.
No,
and it's like, before we wrap up, your thoughts on age. Now you're obviously the exception at your age for your vitality, what you can physically do. Talk about your views on age now, especially now since you've been in this CrossFit journey.
Wow.
Because you don't look your age, my friend.
You
don't move and articulate like you're.
Maybe that's because I'm healthy. I don't know. I mean, I don't really think about it so much. I'm not worried about getting older and dying. Because I'm at a good place with my faith.
Sure.
I don't know. I don't know how to answer that question. I guess I'm okay with growing older the way I am.
You have all your vitality though, so I mean, your outlook is great because you feel great, right?
Yeah,
if you feel
good.
Great.
Yeah,
the outlook's always great.
It always
when
is.
You feel terrible. It's hard to get a good outlook.
And my wife is younger than me, but she's an amazing person. She helps make me strong and encourages me.
Right.
I'm not really around a lot of older people at church, maybe sometimes, but I just don't really think so much about it, Eric. That's a really good question. I'm going to have to think some more about it. It is.
Yeah.
I don't feel my age at all. I don't think my age, like you said.
But I think being in better health, I guess my point is getting active. Like for me, I'm 56 and I don't care physically if I wear it or not. I know I feel much younger. My mind is alert. I'm involved in conversations.
Right.
I want to do dynamic things, which require me to keep my health.
Sure.
I just don't want to, I just don't want to watch television all day.
No.
And have to cut the grass once a week. That's not the life I want,
Drink beer.
Yeah, it's just, it's okay for others and I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
It's just not how I want to live the rest of my life.
Well, I think too many people, we get back to a condition to that's a lifestyle that you should be falling into,
Right. Well, we're conditioned to, this is the retirement years to do this, and just like you're supposed to be doing this or that, and I buck that completely. And I think getting healthy is a part of creating a different mindset.
Here's another way maybe I could say that. Right. There's maybe 200 people in our gym, right? A lot of people, right? And I know all of them because I've been there 9 years, and I coach there too. So I get to coach them. I know them as people and as athletes. And all the time, they'll say, I want to be like you when I get old, Bobby.
Ah, man.
That's what they say.
Well, that's telling you all you need to know.
That's right. That's right.
That's a reaffirmation.
And that really means a lot to me.
Hell yeah.
And I'll tell them, well, look, all you got to do is just keep coming.
Well, I hope to be in the same condition that you're in now, my friend, when I'm your age.
I'm sure you will. You're not going to give it up.
Buddy.
Well,
no,
thank you.
I get it, and I only get it because I'm living and I feel this way, and I wish I could bottle it and hand it to somebody and let them open it up so they could have a feeling of that. Like it's, I feel way better now than I did 10, 15 years ago.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's not even in the same realm.
So let me ask you this. Was COVID responsible for that?
For me, it scared me.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. I basically, I've said it on this podcast before. It's no secret. I just looked in the mirror and I said, this is a disease, if I'm hearing it right, could kill me.
Right.
Because I'm better than this. That's not the guys. I can't do this anymore. Yeah. And I just wholesale, I'm not kidding you. I didn't ease myself into it. I wholesale got all the crazy foods that I would just regiment myself completely. And then I started taking walks and I increased them. And then realized that I must start adding some weight.
Yeah.
2 pounds, 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 15 pounds.
It's cool to watch it come off, right?
It came off so fast.
Wow.
It was alarming to people, but I was completely healthy.
You must have a pretty good metabolism.
I think it was the walking, but it was the crazy diet change. Mm-hmm. It was really, and I didn't find it. Listen, we all like sugars, but ultimately,
I had ice cream yesterday.
I really wanted to feel better, and I wanted to put myself in a better position that if I did get COVID, I'd have a better shot.
Right.
Nothing's guaranteed, but I would have a better shot at surviving it. That was my motivation. And then once I got like 6 months in and I was down like 25 pounds, I was just like, this is easy.
Right.
And I feel freaking amazing.
And I don't want to be like I used to be ever again. And I feel that way too.
I keep one of those pairs. So I wear like a 31, 32 waist jeans now. And I keep a pair of those 36s that were tight on me. Keep them around, just like,
I'm not
every once in a while I'll put this back. I'll put them on once in a while just for a laugh. Funny. Yeah, but that's that makes it real for me.
Yeah, I got rid of all mine. I
probably still wearing 38s, but I was squeezing into 36s. But it's little triggers like that I think are good for the head. For me.
When COVID hit, our gym had to close. Like everybody closed down. But what we did was we bought a bunch of stuff, and we had to build a garage gym.
Oh,
so
right
I didn't miss a beat.
Right on. Good for you.
They were still programming everything. It was online and everything, and I worked out every day.
Very cool.
I didn't like working out by myself.
Yeah.
So used to being in a group.
Yeah.
But I didn't stop.
But you adapted.
Oh yeah.
And that's the thing about, I think, being in good health and being of sound mind that comes with that good health, being alert and dynamic and all that. You find a way to be more adaptable. You handle your stress better. You figure.
I don't have any stress, man.
That's what I'm saying, man. You figure ways out to make things happen. And that all comes with eating, I think, right, and getting yourself in a better mental state.
Have you ever had a nutritionist on your program?
No, not an official nutritionist. It's on my list.
Yeah, maybe you should. Because that's a really interesting topic.
Yeah, and because there's so many different viewpoints, right? There's keto, there's carb loading, runners. There's all kinds of different ways of looking at it. But
yeah, and I think it depends on your goals,
body type, goals.
Yeah.
Did you have a good time?
This was awesome, man. I wished we had more. I got a family obligation tonight. I want to be with.
We're going to get you on your way. But you got to promise to come back and see me.
I will.
Whether it's next year or whenever you're back next time.
We have a lot more we could talk about.
We just scratched the surface, buddy.
Yeah.
I appreciate it, Bobby.
Oh, Eric, thanks so much. This was the best, man.
You got it, my friend.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Cool.
Bobby Clarke.
All right. Peace out.
We're out, friends. Until next time.
Thank you.